Yeah, I am still your teacher Osbert Nwarida. Now, in this video, we want to make conclusions on this Krebs cycle. In the previous video, we were able to see how we generate this Krebs cycle step by step. So in this video, we want to just make some small conclusions about this Krebs cycle. And what are these conclusions? Number one, from this Krebs cycle, we are able to appreciate that ATP is produced. There's production of ATP. So, something very important. We are saying within the Krebs cycle, something very important is within this Krebs cycle, something very important is that the ATP is produced. ATP is produced. Maybe let me first remove this one here. We have ATP is produced. That is one very important conclusion. Within this Krebs cycle, we are able to produce some important molecules. And what are those important molecules? We are able to, within this Krebs cycle, we are able to produce FAD, H2, and we have been able to produce NADH. Very, very important. Now, why am I saying, maybe before I can go into that question, I want to ask you, how many, if you assume that now everything was beginning from one glucose molecule. If we had one glucose molecule, this one glucose molecule underwent glycolysis, as we already saw in the previous videos. After undergoing glycolysis, it was able to give us how many pyruvates? It was able to give us 2 pyruvate molecules under glycolysis. Now, we are assuming that each of those 2 pyruvate molecules enter and come into Krebs cycle. They come into the matrix of the mitochondria when oxygen is present. And each of those pyruvate molecules is undergoing Krebs cycle. Now, if we produce 2 pyruvate molecules from glycolysis, and now, and these 2 pyruvate molecules have all been able to come into the matrix of mitochondria, and they have undergone what we are now referring to as the Krebs cycle. Now, the question is, how many of ATP is being produced from Krebs cycle? If you consider one glucose molecule like this, how many NADH are we producing from Krebs cycle? If you consider one glucose molecule, and how many NADH are we producing from Krebs cycle? Still, when you are considering one glucose molecule, think about it. Let's begin with ATP. If we begin with ATP, I'll pose a question to you and I say, how many ATPs are produced from or within the Krebs cycle if you consider one glucose molecule having been worked upon right away from glycolysis? Remember, this one comes after glycolysis. How much ATP would you tell me? You are saying what? How many? You girl, what? You girl, you are saying what? How many? 1. Are you sure it is going to be 1? Actually, it's going to be 1. No. Okay. I think they are going to be 2. Now the question is, do you know how the 2? How do you know how we get the 2? Do you know how we are getting the 2? We are getting these 2 ATPs in this way. Remember, actually, I've already explained it. Remember, we have said we are considering one glucose molecule. If you have followed these videos, or for those who are writing, if you open backwards, we have seen under glycolysis, this glucose, under glycolysis, this glucose was able to break down, form 2 molecules of what? Pyruvate. Now, each pyruvate undergoes a link reaction. After undergoing a link reaction, it forms acetyl what? Acetyl coenzyme A. And then acetyl coenzyme A comes into this Krebs cycle. And after coming into the Krebs cycle, for each pyruvate, we are forming one ATP. There is an ATP molecule which we are forming here. Another is a very important molecule we are forming. We are forming one ATP here. That means if I am having two pyruvates, if one ATP is coming from one pyruvate, remember this acetyl coenzyme A is coming. This acetyl coenzyme A is coming from where? Is coming from one pyruvate. Is coming from one pyruvate. That means if I have two pyruvate molecules, then we shall have two ATP being formed. So in short, for every glucose molecule which is giving us two pyruvate molecules, and each pyruvate molecule in Krebs cycle is giving us one ATP. That means in Krebs cycle in total, within a Krebs cycle in total, if we have a single glucose molecule, you are able to produce two ATPs within the Krebs cycle. So Krebs cycle is able to gives us two. So we have two ATPs being formed from the Krebs cycle. And how the two ATPs are being formed, I've explained. In the Krebs cycle, each pyruvate gives us one ATP. But from one glucose, we have two pyruvates. So it means now it will be 1 times 2. If each pyruvate is giving us 1, it means the total will be 2 ATPs being produced. I hope that is clear. I'm over repeating myself, I know, but that is for the good of you who is watching. Okay, now I again ask, how many FAD molecules have we formed? How many FAD molecules have we formed? I am asking these questions when this thing is still here, so that it can become easy for you to identify. So, from the Krebs cycle, of course, in glycolysis, we didn't produce any FAD. There was no FAD. FAD, we are only now finding it we are realizing it under Krebs cycle. So in this Krebs cycle, we are able to produce one FAD H2. So it means here we are producing we are producing one FAD H2. But the question is, if we are producing one FAD H2, this FAD H2 is coming from one pyruvate. But remember, if you consider one glucose molecule, one glucose molecule was giving us two pyruvates. Now, each pyruvate is giving us one FAD H2. That means also here, the total amount of FAD H2 which is produced for a single glucose molecule at the beginning is 2. So it means here we also have 2 FAD H2 produced. And that's how it is produced also. Now, 2 ATPs, 1 from each pyruvate under Krebs cycle. We have 2 FAD H2, but 1 came from each pyruvate, but the pyruvates were how many? We are 2 that came into the Krebs cycle from glycolysis. And that's where we're having 2 FAD H2. Now, I have another question now. What about the FAD? What about the NAD? What about the NADH? How many? Do you know you're going to give me a wrong answer? You're going to give me a wrong answer. For example, if I ask you how many NADH2, how many NADH are we producing? You give me an answer. You talk to your neighbor, that neighbor of yours, if you're having a colleague that you're watching with, ask him or ask her that how many NADH do we produce in Krebs cycle. You are saying what? I know somebody is going to say we have 1, we have 2, we have 3 times 2. Is somebody saying like that? I know somebody is saying that we have 1, we have 2, we have 3. That is from 1 pyruvate. Then, like the way we have been doing, times 2, because the pyruvates are 2. And that one becomes 6. Has somebody given us that answer? Is somebody giving us that answer? If not, you have given us that answer. Yeah, I want to thank you. Yeah, because you're not very far from the answer. Actually, I think if I asked you that how many NADH reproduce in Krebs cycle, when you consider 1 glucose molecule and you give me 6, I think you are correct. Yeah, I think that you are correct anyway, because the Krebs cycle is here. The Krebs cycle is here. Yeah, and we are saying we are having 3, we are having 1, we are having 2, we are having 3 NADH being produced, but that is from 1 pyruvate. Then now you get 3 times 2, because the pyruvates are 2, and then you get 6. Yeah, it seems to be correct. Anyway, I think it is correct in one angle. In one angle, I think it is correct. But however, here, the total NADH we are going to produce in Krebs cycle, we are not going to consider 6, but instead we are going to consider 8. We are going to consider 8. Yeah. Teacher, how is it becoming 8? Yeah. Ideally, from the real cycle here, they are 6. Yeah, from the real cycle here, they are 6. That's why I was saying that those people who have said 6, you are not wrong. You're not wrong. You have some idea. You have an idea. However, we are saying we are not going to consider only. We are not going to consider only 6. We are going to, on that 6, we are going to add the 2. Now the question is, where are the other 2 coming from? The other 2, where are they coming from? Yes? Yeah. Where do you think the other 2 are coming from? Yeah, the other 2, why we are not leaving them is because, yes, though we are having 3, though I'm having from 1 pyruvate, I am having 1, 2, 3 NADH being produced. But we are saying this cycle cannot take place when this thing is not there. This thing called acetyl, this molecule known as acetyl coenzyme A is not there. However, if you go in one of the previous videos, when we were looking at the link reaction, where pyruvate was turning that reaction which we had, where pyruvate was turning into acetyl CoA, we were able to see that if this is acetyl CoA, this is acetyl CoA, and then here we had our pyruvate. Remember, we were still in the matrix of the mitochondrion. We saw that yes, indeed, it is true that we have 1, 2, 3 NADH produced in the cycle. But we are saying this cycle cannot take place if we don't have acetyl CoA. And we saw that for us to have this acetyl CoA, we had a very important reaction here. And this very important reaction that took place here was what? We had a reaction where we had NAD. We had a reaction here where NAD plus was able to also give us NADH plus H ion. We also had that reaction. Those ones will remember. So we are saying that yes, it is true. We are saying that yes, it is true. We have 3 in the Krebs cycle, but because this cycle cannot occur without this link reaction, so we also add this NADH, which was from this link reaction, and therefore for 1 pyruvate we produce what? We produce 4 NADH. So it means the total NADH here will be 8. It means here the total NADH here we shall have will be what? It will be 8. And how have we got this 8? We have got 4 times 2. Then here we go to 1 times 2. Here we go to 1 times 2 to give us these 2 here. I hope I'm clear, I hope we are together, Okay, so we have 1 NADH, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4 NADH, but that is from 1 pyruvate. Remember, from glycolysis, if you consider one glucose molecule, from glycolysis we had 2 pyruvates. So each pyruvate is giving us 4 NADH. So to get a total number of NADH which are produced from one glucose within the Krebs cycle, we are saying we get those 4 times 2. The 4 from one pyruvate times 2, because the pyruvates are 2 from one glucose. Now, finally, I also want to ask you about carbon dioxide. What about carbon dioxide? What about carbon dioxide here? What about carbon dioxide? And carbon dioxide may not be that important, but let me ask you, how many carbon dioxide molecules do we produce? Though it may not be that much important, but how many do we produce? I think that now it is easy for you to get. So we have 1, 2. Does somebody want to tell me that they are 4? No, they are not 4. If you consider what you have said here, if you see what you have considered to get the 8, no, most of you are saying 6. But now we have seen the 8. If you see how we have gotten the other 2, then you can also tell how many carbon dioxide we shall have here. So here we shall have how many carbon dioxide? They will not be 4, but they will be 6. Why? Because we also saw that during this reaction here, during this link reaction, remember this was 3 carbon, this is 2 carbon. So we also saw a loss of a carbon what? A carbon dioxide here, a loss of a carbon in form of carbon dioxide there. So it means also for carbon, there are how many? It is 1, 2, 3 times 2, which gives us 6. So here, for carbon dioxide, we have 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, and we are getting 3 times what? 3 times 2. However, for this one here, we may not be much interested in this. We are going to be much interested in these ones here, these 3. So we are saying for pyruvate, we are saying that we are seeing that in Krebs cycle, we are able to produce 2 ATPs straight away. We are able to produce 2 FADH2 molecules. We are able to produce 8 NADH molecules. Teacher, why are you emphasizing? How come you are emphasizing the NAD and the FAD? Which role do they have? Any serious role apart from helping us to remove hydrogen and remove electrons from these reactions? Yes, those molecules have an important role that we are going to see that they play as we progress. So please keep watching and look out for all the other episodes. However, before I go into the other details, why I'm saying these ones are important, because we are saying these molecules, you see these 2 molecules, the FADH2 and the NADH, they have helped us to pick electrons and to pick hydrogen atoms here. But we are saying when these NADH2 and the NADH and the FADH2 go and take that hydrogen and take those electrons and those hydrogen atoms, and they take them to the next step, the 3rd step, which we are calling the electron transport chain, more energy is produced there. So that's why I'm emphasizing them, because yes, Krebs cycle, we can say Krebs cycle has produced ATP, but 2 ATPs, but we are saying yes, directly it produces 2 ATPs, but indirectly there are very many other ATP molecules that it is giving us, because of these 2 molecules that it have, because of these 8 molecules and 2 molecules that they have produced. When those molecules go to the electron transport chain, as we are going to see together. Am I understood? Hope we are together. Yeah, so we are saying this is our what? This is our Krebs cycle, and that is those are the products of the Krebs cycle. However, there is something I had talked about previously, and this something was how when I was talking about the link reaction, there is something I talked about, and this was how other foods that we eat, for example, proteins, for example, lipids, apart from carbohydrates, are able to give us energy. And there is something I told you that we shall repeat. after I've talked about the Krebs cycle. Now, the fact that we have now finished appreciating the Krebs cycle, in the next episode, we are now going to link how the other foods, for example, the foods we eat, like proteins, like lipids, can also be used by our bodies to produce energy, especially when carbohydrates are not readily available. That is coming in the next episode. So please come with me and we'll go into that episode. May God bless you.